Steve Gompertz from QRx Partners, and welcome to this week's Quality Heretic. If you follow me at all on LinkedIn, you have probably seen that one of my pet peeves are misquotes on posts on LinkedIn. I see it all the time. People pick something that sounds really good and they say it was said by somebody really smart. I suppose to make it look like they're well read or something, and to get more clicks. But often, the intent I think is to look more credible. And for me, if you quote the wrong person or cite the wrong person, you kind of destroy your credibility, right? So you're kind of working against yourself. And that's, it's not that I want to be the quote police. It's just that I hate to see people making those kind of mistakes. But there's another danger to it as well in terms of getting the concept wrong that you're trying to portray. I'm going to bet everybody knows some version of this one. What gets measured gets managed, right? Or it's close cousin. You can't improve what you can't measure. I know I've been hearing this since well before the LinkedIn, early days when I first started to learn about quality. This was always being thrown out there, right? And if I were to ask you who said that, either one of those quotes, I would probably get something along these lines, and you'll see it in memes that are posted on the internet. It's either Peter Drucker or W. Edwards Deming or Lord Kelvin even gets in there. I'm not quite sure where that one comes from. Well, and here's the interesting part about this. None of them said any of those things or anything close to those things. So one, it's just wrong to cite, and say, oh, Peter Drucker said this or Deming said this. And both of them get attributed to a lot of other types of quotes that were never said by them. Kelvin, you don't see a lot of stuff about Kelvin out there, so I'm not sure what he may have actually said. But Drucker and Deming and Einstein, show up all the time with these quotes that are not even close to anything they said. But as I said, besides the fact that you destroy your credibility by doing that, is the danger of getting the concept wrong. And I'm going to go one, with Deming, because that quote about, you can't fix what you can't measure, is often attributed to Deming. And you know me, I like to throw up Deming's book here and say, look, if you're going to quote Deming, you really should be reading Deming, or at least the articles that come out of his books or that are on his organization's website. But what Deming's actual quote that comes close to this is this: it is wrong to suppose that if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. A costly myth. Think about that. That's actually the exact opposite of what those other quotes are saying. Those quotes are saying you have to, we've also heard this one, right? In God we trust, all others bring data. And that's often attributed to Deming as well. And he never said that one either. Right. And it's just this idea that those other two quotes make this case for you have to measure things. Otherwise, you can't possibly make improvements. You can't fix anything without the data. Yet here's Deming saying exactly the opposite, right? And it wasn't that Deming didn't like data. He agreed. If you had good data, yes. He was worried about bad data or drawing the wrong conclusions or driving the wrong behaviors. And I've talked about that in some of my other videos about driving the wrong behaviors through setting the wrong goals. And that was what Deming was getting at. And he was more getting at, you don't always need this infinite amount of data to get things right. His view was, kind of like Duran's, you can fix things without a lot of jumping through hoops. Usually you know what's broken, why it's broken, go fix it, right? And that's kind of the gist of this statement, is Deming saying, don't sit around waiting to measure it. If you know what needs to be done, do it, right? Don't get hung up on, do we need all this data? Oh, we didn't do an analysis. And I know as quality professionals and engineers, we love a good formula and a good spreadsheet. We feel, or Minitab, and we just love that we have these great analyses. But sometimes the problems are just staring us right in the face, and it doesn't take a whole lot of effort. You don't need to do Six Sigma on everything. You can fix things without all of this, rigmarole. Now, on the other side of that, sometimes people say, well, there's also this case of oh, that's hard to measure or that can't be measured, right? This sort of defeatist attitude. And just to show you that Deming's not the only person I read, I mentioned Duran. If you're in the software arena, you might know this gentleman, Tom Gill, who's been around for a long, long, long time in the software engineering world. He's now retired and his son has taken over the practice. But I was lucky enough to actually go through one of his courses live, and very interesting guy, and always has lots of good comments, and his books are wonderful. And one of his quotes that I always liked was this one: any attempt to measure what you want to quantify is almost always better than not measuring it at all. So he was a big fan of, don't sit around and go, God, that's too hard to measure, or I don't know if that's a valid test method. And I get it. There's value obviously in doing test method validation, but sometimes these things are hard. They are complex. And he was just a fan of do something, get some data, right? Even at its most, simplistic approach, it's better than not measuring at all, which means you're just guessing, right? He was also fond of saying if you were going to declare that something couldn't be measured, that you were declaring yourself as the end all be all expert on that topic. And I thought that was a pretty good dare from him. He also had this going bet that he'd give $100 to anybody who could trip him up and find something that he couldn't come up for a measurement for, and he's never had to pay out the $100. But between these two, Deming and Guild, right? They're just saying you don't always have to sit there and wait for everything for the stars to align and everything becomes crystal clear because we've got a great analysis. They're saying take action, right? If it's clear enough, you don't need all this data, or taking the action sometimes gives you the ability to create a process that now is measurable. So keep that in mind. Be careful about putting those wrong quotes out there and looking. Well, I'm not going to say what you look like, but you get it, right? If you're putting a quote out there that didn't belong to that person and wasn't even part of their philosophy, you're really undermining your own credibility. And you're, unfortunately, too many people just blindly like and repost because it sounds wonderful without really thinking about it. So let's have a discussion on this. You have any other favorites out there that, quotes that you go, oh, I'm so tired of seeing that because I know it's wrong and I know it's not by that person. Would love to get conversations going in the comments. So otherwise, I'll see you next week on the Quality Heretic.